People love to talk about writer's block. And they love to talk about writer's block because it sounds fancy, it sounds like a real thing. It also sounds like something that you can do nothing about. I have writer's block. I cannot write. And it is the will of the gods. Now I must alphabetize my spice rack. Whatever. You can't do anything about it. And that, of course, isn't true. I have received long emails from people with writer's block. And I'm going, well, if you had real writer's block, how can you be writing me a long email about... what they're actually saying is, I'm stuck on the thing. I don't know what's happening. It's dead on the page. So what you do is, start one step away. First thing to do, if you're actually stuck, don't just sit there staring at the page, staring at the screen, staring at your keyboard, being angry. Go do something else. Chop wood. Go for a walk. Go for a run. Go for a swim. Go garden. Go play with small children. Go explore kittens. Go feed the chickens. Go do whatever it is that you can do. 2, come back pretending you have never read it before. The old pretend you've never read it before technique. Start at the beginning and read it through. Very, very often, once you do that, where the story should be becomes obvious. Where you went off the rails becomes obvious. And you did go off the rails. The problem is always earlier. Problem's always earlier than the place where, the car goes off the road and now you're stuck there. You actually took a wrong turning a couple of streets back or a town or two back. So, but that's something that you can see. Normally, if you just come to it and go from the beginning and come through, you're suddenly going, oh, well, hang on. Why are we with him anyway? She was much more interesting and we should be with her here. It doesn't matter what happens to him. And so I abandon half a chapter that had led me down a dead end and go back. And you can do that. Nobody but you ever gets to read your first draft. Nobody but you ever needs to know that you got stuck. I think the biggest things when you are stuck that you can do, and there's a whole bunch of things, the biggest thing of all is remembering that you are stuck. Sometimes it's just you're being shallow. Sometimes you actually need to be a bit better than you are. Go a bit deeper. Get a bit more honest. Okay, why have I stopped writing this? I've stopped writing this because if I have to go into it, it's a deeper, darker place. Maybe you've stopped because if you wrote that scene, you would be writing a scene you don't want to write. Well, why don't you want to write it? Why is it painful for you? What happens if you do write it?
Don't worry about writer's block. Writer's block is there for a reason. Just give it some time. Pose the problem. If you're writing something, pose the problem in your mind, walk away from it, go to a party, wait a couple of days, have a dream.
How people usually react to being stuck and how you react to it?
Well, I'd said in there that, and that is probably a major contribution to motorcycle maintenance of this book, that when you get stuck on fixing motorcycles, that's not a bad moment. That's actually a pretty good moment. And the times I've been stuck, I've been able to catch myself at being stuck, and instead of getting mad, just gone off and had a cup of coffee. And I notice whenever I'm stuck like that if I look at the clouds are much more beautiful. And if that's getting a little bit sentimental, but I find that at the very moment of stuckness, if you just stop and look around you, you find the world is very real. If you remember back in your own life periods when your life was very vivid, it was usually during a hang-up, or at least for me. So I think stuckness is very good for people, and that when it comes, you should welcome it because it won't last long. I think people in Western culture are trained to believe that if they get stuck, that may be the end of the world. But life doesn't stop. It just goes on, even when you're stuck.
That feeling of being stuck in your personal life, in your job, in any inconvenience that sets your schedule off
Yeah.
is so overpowering to us that it sets us into fear, actual panic. Don't we get in the way of our own growth in the middle of that stuckness by not taking it and just living it?
The stuckness is kind of what you call non-doing. And our whole society is set up for doing. We always ask a person when we want to know about them, well, what do you do? You know, well, actually, in Zen, the correct answer is I don't do anything except sit. You know, and they say you just sit around, don't do anything. Yes, exactly. You know, and I say, well, something wrong with that. I mean, what do you really do? You know. And the reason this question is asked again and again and again is because people are predisposed to think that unless you are doing something, something's wrong. And this is a part of the value of the sitting meditation, is that you're instructed just to sit there and prevent yourself from doing anything. And you find that this is not as easy as you thought it would be. You think, well, gee, now I don't have to do anything. That's easy. But you discover after about 10 minutes that this is very, very hard, and that there are as many degrees of difficulty in non-doing as there are in doing. And to become skilled at non-doing is quite as difficult as becoming skilled at doing. But then after you acquire both skills, skills at doing and skills at non-doing, you find that if you're stuck in traffic, it doesn't create frustration. You just swing into your non-doing life. That is, if your car won't go forward, you just sit in your car and you build your life that way. It's almost like photosynthesis and respiration. You know, if a plant just gets nothing but sunlight, it's very harmful. It has to have darkness too. And in the sunlight, it converts carbon dioxide to oxygen, but in the darkness, it takes oxygen and converts it back into carbon dioxide. And I think people are like that. You have to have some periods of doing and some periods of non-doing. And when you get both of them in a mixture back and forth, then you really lead a much fuller life than if you're always committed to doing. So many people say, well, I don't see the purpose of Zen, you see, or the purpose of just meditation. And the reason they don't see it is because they're committed to doing it. You don't do anything, you know. But when you don't do anything, all that garbage in your head that's accumulated from all this doing during the day starts to come to the surface and float away, and your life is purified again, or at least your mental life, psychic life. And this is very valuable, and I think it's a practice which is coming in very strongly, and not just in Zen, in all the meditative disciplines.
It's easy to believe that creativity is going to come at us like lightning. Miles Davis recorded Kind of Blue in 72 hours, one of the greatest jazz albums ever recorded, certainly one of the best-selling. 3 days, done. We look at that and we say to ourselves, wow, I can't wait for something like that to hit me. Except Miles Davis made more than 40 record albums in his career. More than 40. And very few compared to Kind of Blue. How could they? That's okay. He did the work. He showed up and he did the work. Years ago, I was fortunate enough to work with the great Isaac Asimov. Isaac was one of the most important science fiction writers of his generation. He pioneered the writings about robots. He figured out how to write space operas. In fact, he wrote 400 books in his career. Wrote and published 400 books back when there was no Kindle and publishing yourself wasn't particularly easy. 400 books. How'd he do it? Isaac, I said, how'd you do it? He said, well, it's pretty simple. I have this manual typewriter, and every morning I get up at 6:30 and I sit at the typewriter, and then I type, and I type until noon. I just type. I keep typing. It doesn't matter if I type good stuff. It doesn't matter if I type bad stuff. I keep typing. And what his subconscious would say to him is, well, as long as we've got to type, we might as well type something worth reading. And this idea that we are going to be able to create more and more bad work on our way to good work is one way to unlock the myth, to get past the stuckness and realize we don't have a problem with writing, just as we don't have a problem with talking. What we really have a problem with is being perfect.